All right, welcome to Bible and Bodybuilding with a Bear today. We're going to wrap up 1 Samuel in chapter 31. And we're going to see how it is that God sometimes just pulls you out of the way. You're involved in some things, not necessarily good, bad. Let's just say they're even good. I mean, you're on a missionary, pilgrimage. You're taking care of somebody. You're in charge of something, and just all of a sudden, your hands are tied, whether it be physically, financially, emotionally, by other responsibilities, callings. And all of a sudden, you just realize you just got to let go and let God. It's out of your hands. They've moved. You've moved. And you've changed shifts. You've gone to third shift. Maybe you've gone to second shift. Something has changed, and it's like out of your control. And you have to just let go and let God. We're going to see this today as we pick up with David, as kind of on the run with his own little warring party. You have Saul in charge of Israel. And most certainly he's kind of made a lot of bad decisions. And we're going to see there's going to be a change of hands here. David is off battling the Amalekites. He was getting ready to go out to battle with the Philistines against Israel. God kind of intervened in that and pulled him off, not only away from being with the Philistines, but his own city was attacked and they drug off all his people. So he was totally immersed in getting his own families, his own warriors' families back, his things. He was totally immersed. He had to let go and let God. And as he's battling the Amalekites and coming back to Ziklag, which was his turf, his territory, Saul and Israel are battling the Philistines, and he's just not able to get involved whatsoever. And you're going to see that sometimes in your life. You're ready to take charge, and you've been helping, and all of a sudden the roadblocks are going up. Boom, boom, boom. All the doors are closed, and there's nothing you can do. You say, God, I don't know what I can do. And that's what God wants you to do. Unless you really have the drive, and you say, I'm going to keep pushing against this. And sometimes you have to do that. But sometimes also there's where God has intervened and just taken you out of the equation. There's a math equation, and you've been removed from that equation. And God is working, and he wants you not involved in this for whatever reason. Now, with all that chewing of the flab, let's get to our Bible study. 1 Samuel chapter 31. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell down slain on Mount Gilboa. This was their Waterloo. This was their Dunkirk. This was it. They had full intention of winning, and they failed. And some of them were rescued. The rest of them fled for their lives. Saul is going to take a hit here. And the Philistines followed hard upon Saul and upon his sons, and the Philistines slew Jonathan and Abinadab and Malchishua, Saul's sons. And the battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was sore wounded of the archers. Then said Saul unto his armor-bearer, Draw thy sword, and thrust me through. It was a great dishonor to be taken captive by your enemy and tortured, or put in prison and humiliated. It was a great dishonor. Better to, whatever their hara-kiri like the Japanese do. Saul's wickedness drove him to this point. He was driven by a lot of bad decisions that he made with a wicked intent. And he's to this point. And God has allowed to be kind of removed from the equation. He's not going to rescue Israel this time around because their wickedness, Saul's wickedness, and he's going to allow Israel to be overrun. Their king to be killed, and most of his sons killed in battle. So Saul told his armor bearer, "Thrust me through with thy sword," because he knew he was going to die. He had been hit with arrows multiple times. He's going to die. He just doesn't want to be killed and made fun of and made sport of by the Philistines if somehow he was to survive. But the armor bearer would not. He was in terror and fear. So Saul took his own sword and fell upon it. In the Bible, never do we see a righteous man committing hara-kiri or killing himself off. We just don't see that. Saul was not a righteous man. Whether or not he went to heaven or not, that's not my point. At this point, there was wickedness in his life, and he had made a lot of bad decisions. And Samuel, if you recall in our previous journeys, in 1 Samuel, Saul went to inquire of a departed prophet. And Samuel told Saul, "Tomorrow you and your sons are going to be in Sheol, where I'm at." Now, whether it meant in paradise or on the other side, where the wicked go, in the lake of fire, and the abuso, the abyss, hell, Hades. We don't know. But Samuel said, "You and your sons are going to be in Sheol, where I am at." The afterlife. And when his armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he fell likewise upon his sword and died with him. And Saul died, and his 3 sons, and his armor bearer, and all his men the same day together. And when the men of Israel that were on the other side of the valley, they saw that Israel had been defeated and were fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead, they forsook the cities and fled, and the Philistines came and dwelt in them. Now we're talking about days having gone by here, weeks possibly, where people have heard the news, and they gathered up their belongings and they fled. Because the Philistines were soon going to be upon them. Israel, the army of Israel was no longer to be a wall between them and the Philistines are about to overrun. And it came to pass on the morrow, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, that they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. And they cut off his head and stripped off his armor and sent into the land of the Philistines round about to publish it in the house of their idols and amongst their people, that Saul, their arch enemy, was dead. Cutting the head off of your enemy and portraying it nailing it to a wall, kind of is like the finality, right? They don't come back to life once the head's been clipped off. And they put Saul's armor in the house of Ashtaroth, their pagan god, their deity, and they fastened his body to the wall of Bethshan. That was like, in Middle Eastern times, that was like the epitome of, you're defeated, your land and your armies belong to us now. And when the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead, which were the Israelites, heard of what the Philistines had done to Saul, all the valiant men arose and went all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Bethshan and came to Jabesh and burnt them there. And they took their bones and buried them under a tree at Jabesh and fasted 7 days. Now, generally speaking, we don't really see Israel doing the Viking burial like that. Excuse me. We don't really see Israel lighting up their kings on a funeral pyre or on a ship like the Vikings did. They put their king on a ship and they shot arrows out to it to burn the ship, burn the body, and let the bones sink into the waters. We don't really see that being practiced by Israel and the godly as a general rule. Why this time around they did that? Possibly the bodies were decomposed. It's in a warm climate, hot climate, and things were already pretty horrid. And it could be that burning them was the best that they could do. And then they burned the bodies, buried the bones. The end of an era. The end of a regime that started out good. I believe actually it started out good. Started out good. And then it went, shall we say, south quickly. It went evil. Saul's heart became despoiled. He became arrogant in his heart. He became disobedient. Whereas he started good. God chose him. God chose, isn't that interesting? God chose Saul and gave him every opportunity and every blessing, the encouragement of Samuel the prophet to do what was right. He started good. Now we see a regime change, a change of an empire. The things are shifting now. And I'm just going to read a couple of verses here from the beginning of 2 Samuel, chapter 1, verse 1. And as I said, God had pulled David out of the loop. And he was so distracted, so caught up in what he was doing, going after the Amalekites that had taken the city of Ziklag and his family, his loved ones, his goods, all of his men's goods, their wives, their children. David was amassed, totally consumed by going out after the enemies that had taken his families and his belongings and his people, that he had nothing left to go after and help Israel or the Philistines, lest David would get involved and help Israel fight against the Philistines. God didn't want him to have any part in that. So a situation was created that brought blessings to many others and also consumed David and his men from getting involved in that battle. God did not want David and his men in the battle where the Philistines conquered Israel. He did not want them there. And believe it or not, sometimes God does that to us, pulls us out of the loop, out of the equation, because that's what God wants. And there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to let go and let God. So we see things kind of pick up now. The battle's over. Israel's been defeated. David and his men are kind of oblivious to the whole situation. Now it came to pass after the death of Saul, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, and David had abode 2 days in Ziklag. So they're resting, they're binding their wounds, and dividing up the spoils. A couple of days goes by. And it came to pass on the 3rd day that, behold, a man came out of the camp from Saul with his clothes rent and earth upon his head. So it was, when he came to David, that he fell to the earth and did obeisance. David said unto him, Whence thou comest? And he said unto him, Out of the camp of Israel, and I am escaped. David said unto him, How went the matter? I pray thee, tell me. And he answered, That the people are fled from the battle in the Philistines, and many of the people are fallen and dead, and Saul and Jonathan his son are dead also. Saul was David's archenemy, though David didn't really feel that way. For his part, David honored him, respected him. But Saul was envious. He was jealous of David. But not his son Jonathan. Jonathan was a righteous man. He was a good man. And he was kindred to David, a man of equal faith in God, in the God of Israel, and in the God Yahweh, in the Son of God. They knew him. They loved him. And David now finds out that there's about to be a shift in the regime of Israel. And he is going to be a key player in that shift. So next time we'll pick that up in 2 Samuel. And the baton is going to be placed in the hands of David. No longer Saul and his family. There's going to be a little drama, a little political maneuvering here. But eventually, the baton and the scepter of Israel is going to be moved into the hands of David. Until next time, my friends, God bless you. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.